Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. It's Sketch Monkey here. Today we're gonna talk about the Corvette E-Ray. I'm a huge fan of this car. I think the changes that they made, the minor changes compared to the C8 Corvette, are huge and they make a big difference. However, this video is going to be a very much small changes. I'm gonna show you how tiny changes can make a massive impact on the perception, specifically in the front end proportions of the C8 in general and the E-Ray as well. So let's have a look at what changes were made from the C8 Corvette to the E-Ray. I made a video on this on my second channel, so I'm just gonna quickly go over it here. If you want to see the full breakdown, you can go to my Bambly channel and check out my video on the E-Ray there. But you can see that we have a completely new front end in the Z06 and the E-Ray here compared to the C8, which has these wings, for example, pointing this way, and in the E-Ray we have them pointing outwards like this, which I think looks better. It gives a more dynamic feeling in the front end and makes it look sportier having that angle. We also have this section here, which I'm not sure what it is. Looks like some sort of maybe sensor panel or something like that, but it doesn't look too integrated in the front end. Now, does it? We could probably make a better job trying to integrate that into the front end of the car. Looking at the side view, here are also some big changes to the side view of the E-Ray comparing it to the C8. We have a new intake right here that I showed you in my previous video, pointing upwards here as well instead of pointing downwards, and I've never understood why Chevy decided to make this a black piece that just sits in the middle of right in the middle section of the car, and it sticks out and it just feels like it's not supposed to be there. I'm not sure why they decided to go with this side blade. Maybe it was inspired by the R8 or something like that, but you can see that we have a brand new front end, and also these fenders in the E-Ray are a lot wider than we have in C8, which I think looks a whole lot better. We have a beefy rear muscle over the rear axle, in addition to some minor changes in the rear end, which we see right here. Same thing here. I think these small upgrades that they did really improves the design of the C8, and I made a redesign of the C8 when it came out, and one thing I said there was that I thought these look too squarish. They look too static. Specifically when you're talking about a mid-engine almost supercar, you want to have it look as wide as possible, and this kind of breaks that up by having just a static square. So what I did in the redesign was just to stretch it out something like this to make it longer and wider, and this then emphasizes the entire width of the car. That's exactly what they did in the E-Ray and the Z06. So they made this intake less squarish. It doesn't go as high as it did before. Instead, lower it down and then bring it further inwards on both sides, obviously, and that, as I said, creates this wider stance of the car in addition to these wider fenders that we have front and rear. Now, one interesting thing that I want to show you here is mid-engine cars and the proportions of them. When I first saw the C8, I noticed something was off with the front end. It took me a while to figure it out, but I know what it is right now, and I'm gonna try to communicate that issue here by showing you this lineup of beautiful exotic cars. We have the Huracan, we have the 570S and the 488 GTB, and then down here we have the Corvette's E-Ray. So I want you to focus on one specific thing here, and that is the positioning of the headlight and the height of the front intakes. Focus on those two things when we go through these cars. Look at the level of the headlight and compare it to the level of the wheels. For example, the wheel arch, this on the Huracan, it goes almost up to this point maybe, and the air intake in the front end sits very low, super chiseled. I think the Lamborghini Huracan does this the best, showing this chiseled mid-engine form in the front end, but it's also visible in the McLaren 570S. You have the headlights here a lot more fluid than we have in the Lamborghini, for example, but still the headlights sit a little higher in this case, but they still don't go above this point up here, the top part of the front wheel well. They sit lower than that, and also you have the lower intakes here sitting pretty low as well, with the sensors and all the technology being hidden in this part, which also looks really well integrated in the overall body of the front end. Then we have the 488 GTB, same thing here. The main headlight sits all the way down here, which if we draw a line, this is a bit of a curvature, goes up to pretty much the same height as the Huracan, and this creates this forward motion, and it makes the front end looks light when you have this chiseled front end in combination with this one line, sharp line that cuts off where the intakes start in the front end, and these two wings here as well. Very beautiful design. And also I want to also focus on the side intakes and how elegantly integrated they are in all of these cars. There's not a lot of creases and styling, over styling going on in the side of the car. Now, if we compare this to the C8 Corvette, first of all, let's talk about the headlight positioning and just look at how far up this headlight sits. It sits almost above the top part of the front wheel well, which is way too high, in my opinion, if you want to have it look like a proper exotic. And in addition to that, we now have this line in the front end going all the way up here, sitting pretty high, creating this wall in the front end. It makes it look heavy, and it doesn't look as aerodynamic as all the rest of the lineup here, because it doesn't have the same chiselness in the front end. So what I want to do here, in addition to just redesigning the front end by just moving it forward a little bit and downwards, so it creates a longer front end that slopes further downwards by just a couple of inches, but it's gonna make a whole world of difference when you see the result. Another thing I want to do is focus on the side view. Just look at this Ferrari, for example, just how beautiful and clean this is. Everything has a purpose here. In the Corvette, I think it's just too much going on in these lines. I'm not sure why they added all of these lines in the bottom part of the midsection of the car. It just looks a little too messy for me, and it's an easy step to just clean that up and make it a little nicer going into this air vent. Another thing about the air vent that I like that they did with the E-Ray is that they made this in a body colored matching color like we have in the rest of the body, so it doesn't stick out. It's not a black random piece that just sits here. But what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna remove this blade altogether and have this melt into the body. So remove this seam that we have here, remove it all together, and just have the body create a nice beautiful surface here instead that will be the edge of the top part of the air intake. So let's jump into the redesign here and let's see what is going on. So as I said, this is gonna be a very quick redesign, but it's something that I wanted to do ever since I saw the E-Ray to begin with, and the C8. I made a quick redesign of the C8 way back in, I think it was 3 years ago or something like that when it first came out. But this, I think, as I said, it's a big upgrade from the C8 in terms of the graphic design, specifically in the front end, but also the side intake, the blade. The shape of it looks so much better than the normal C8 in my opinion, but I still think that we can make it look even better than this. I'm gonna try and figure out the integration of this sensor panel that sits in the front end, and maybe have that be in line with this lower wing that goes in from the lower part and then stretches outwards into the lights. Maybe have the end points of these sensors be in line with that fin that goes down there, and then of course stretching the whole front end forward just a little bit, lower it a little bit to make the headlights be in the correct line or height in regards to the front wheel well, as I showed you with the lineup that I showed you in just a few minutes ago. And in addition to that, I also want to clean up the side, of course, specifically the lower part of the side, which we talked about, all the lines that go there. I'm not a huge fan of these two parallel lines that go there, but I'm not gonna change that. I'm just gonna change the surfacing in the lower half of the midsection in front of the air intake to clean that up a little bit, and also remove this definition of the blade and have the intake being a part of the body itself, so not have this border that we see on the C8 and the E-Ray, and just have it be more of a smooth surface that ends and creates this gorgeous intake that we have on the side. And of course, I can't help myself, I'm gonna make the wheels a little bit bigger, maybe 1 inch bigger, and also plant the car a little better, have them fill out the wheel wells better. And with those small changes, if I go back and forth between the before and after, you can see that at least in my opinion, I think it makes a huge difference just stretching out the front end at least and work on those proportions in the front to not have the front end look so heavy and so high up compared to the rest of the cars that have a similar mid-engine layout as the C8 Corvette.